What's up, Swag Event Nation? Hey, man, we got an amazing video for y'all. Stay tuned. We got Andy Stumpf, former Navy SEAL. Hey, we had an amazing conversation. We talked about this whole Dan Crenshaw, Sean Ryan thing. We talked about Venezuela. We talked about transition. We talked about Buzz. Man, we had an amazing conversation, y'all. So stay tuned. We got a great, impactful podcast for y'all. If you love our content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a Swag Event video. Cue the intro!
Now on the set of the Swag Event show, we do it for the sisters, bros from coast to coast. A place where it's safe to go to make sure that a soldier's stories are told. All around the globe, going worldwide, representing military pride. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
You should already be at the position of attention for them boys when they come out, the original first Swag veteran. And then you got that boy Big Pen. Hey man, salute me or shoot me. And if you ain't no vet, you better not talk like one.
Hey, boom. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Swag Event Podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. Hey, man, today I got an amazing guest with me. He graced us with his presence today. Today we're sitting down with Andy Stumpf, a former Navy SEAL, leader under pressure, and someone who understands what it means to perform at the highest level when the stakes are real. This episode falls under the Life After Boots conversation, where we talk about transition, identity, and how we carry the elite mindset forward and when the uniform comes off. Andy, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. Thanks for reaching out.
Absolutely. How do you feel about this whole Venezuela thing, man? The thing just kicked off. You being with your operational experience, I'm kind of curious to pick your brain about it.
Yeah, I'm always slow to come to my opinions on stuff like this. I mean, I'm very disconnected from the active duty military at this point, so I don't have any inside spit.
Yeah.
People reach out to me a lot when it comes to stuff like this, and it takes me a little bit of time to separate. The first headlines are almost always wrong. I don't know why we have to keep relearning this process.
Oh, man.
People jump all over it. And it's, and I've just learned, let's give it a day. Let's give it a beat, maybe even 48 hours. It's not like Maduro is a great guy, right? Like the guy's probably not going to get put in for the Nobel Peace Prize. I think we can start with that. I don't think anybody would argue that he's a humanitarian or even necessarily a good leader for that country. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the legalities of military actions. I would have to assume that for this action to have taken place, it was largely a special operations action. The military authorities are in place. It's either a Title 10 or a Title 50 authorization. So there are lawyers involved in the planning process. There are lawyers briefing up into the execution process for the people who are given the go, no go. So I have to assume that it was a legal operation under whatever definition that they were using.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it was in the best interest of our country from even an optic perspective? I don't know. I'm so hesitant to support putting boots on the ground other than in times when it's absolutely and essentially necessary. And there are times where that is the case. I don't know if this rises to that criteria, but I don't know a whole lot about Venezuela or Maduro. So I withhold any level of judgment on it. I have the same amount of questions as other people do. Sounds like from an operational perspective, it sounds like it was a very tactically well executed operation by guys on your side, the Army side of the house. It was the CAG boys going down there. Seems like they had a lot of air cover over the top. I'm sure it was the 160th that put them right on the X. And those guys, you get them on target, they do their job. So it doesn't surprise me that it went the way that it did. But yeah, I still have more questions than answers, man. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but I'm really slow to develop my opinions on this stuff. I need more information.
No, you dissected it very good. I mean, it just happened. We have to let time play out and see what really comes of it as information starts to flow in. So yeah, I appreciate that, man. A lot of people early on in life, you kind of knew what you wanted to do when you were 11 years old. That was crazy when I read that, man. Can you walk me kind of through that?
I mean, basically what you're saying is a realization I had when I was young. I'm from a military brat family on my mom's side. My mom's dad and mother. My mom's mother, my grandmother, served in the Navy first, then the Army. Her father was in the Army in the Supply Corps. My dad was in the Navy, served in Vietnam. His dad was in the Navy. His dad's dad was in the Navy. And my parents were not hey, we don't want you to serve type of parents, but they also weren't like, hey, do you want to go check out the recruiter's office when you turn 18? You know, I think they had better, not better. I think they had different hopes for what I wanted my life to look like. And I was driving, I worked for my dad's construction company when I was young. And I remember the conversation pretty specifically. We were driving back from an area near Santa Cruz called Aptos. And he didn't talk much about Vietnam. He was on the Mark Ones, the first squadron of patrol boats working in Vietnam. And so he wasn't a SEAL. And I think his job would probably not even be considered special operations, but he was an insertion and extraction platform for SEAL Team 1 at the time. And obviously remembered some of those stories and interactions. And he just brought up the SEAL community, not even anything tactical or specific. It was just this kind of overarching, hey, this is what I think this community is. And it just sounded fascinating to me. I certainly didn't know at 11 why it was so interesting. I'll be honest with you, at 48, I still don't really understand what it was. There was just something about it. And it's very common for people to say, well, how did you know that's what you wanted to do? And the answer is, I don't really know. But almost everybody that I served with said exactly the same thing. For whatever reason, once they heard of that concept, it became this gravitational pull, and it's what they wanted to do in their life. And it was at an age that didn't make sense to a lot of people that happened. So it was an uncommon narrative outside of the community, but an extremely common narrative inside. And I don't know why. I mean, I'm sure there was, now looking back on it, I'm sure there was some essence of, you know, it probably sounded really cool, right? I thought it was going to be a movie. The fact that it's hard and not everybody can and make it through the training, I'm sure there was an aspect of that as well. You know, all of that stuff rolled in, just also with being a knucklehead 11-year-old who didn't know anything about the world. Argument could still be made that I don't, but, you know, it's certainly at 11. But yeah, I mean, that's, once I had that idea, it's about all I paid attention to until I left for Navy boot camp.
Wow. So you kind of became obsessed early, and then it drove you to go ahead and raise your hand, huh?
Yep. Yep.
So what was it like stepping into Navy boot camp? Or was it a culture shock? Because you said your parents, so you kind of had that discipline early on.
They didn't, I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. They didn't raise us under any type of like military dogma or discipline. I mean, you're in the Army. I don't know if you realize this, Navy boot camp is a little bit different than what you guys go through.
I heard a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking it at all. It is a transition from people going from a community or an outside world that is all very me centric to the military, which is a we, right? Like, let's think a little bit more about the people to our left and right. And honestly, Navy boot camp is preparing people for Navy service. So a lot of it was shipboard oriented. A lot of it was knowledge based off of fleet and naval information, which is wildly incredible if that's what you're going to do for your career. It didn't have much applicability for what I ended up doing. However, I had no guarantee that I was going to end up doing what I did. I mean, I screened for buds. They put you in, they bring you in and you watch this old VHS tape, and it was the worst footage of the most non-exciting stuff. And I already knew that they were going to do this because I had done as much research as possible. But that's where you can additionally volunteer. And then it's the test, the volunteer test it's like a 500-meter swim in the pool, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, and a run. It's not like we're not shattering the earth here with complexity. But once I passed that, then that kind of, it alters your trajectory a little bit. So for us, it's called an A school, which would get you your NEC or MOS for you guys. Only certain A schools at that time were allowed to go to BUDS afterwards. BUDS was only accepting certain ratings. So I picked the shortest one that I can find, which ended up being a radar scope operator. So I graduated the Navy radar scope operator course or operations specialist course. Still to this day, I've never seen one for real in real life. Nor would you want me to navigate a vessel in any way, but I chose it because it was an 8-week course, and I figured it would get me to Coronado, which is where all of SEAL training goes down. So I ended up there in January of 1997, checking in, and yeah, the rest of it's kind of history. Got there at a good time where I didn't have to wait very long to class up, and maybe a couple of weeks, and then started training. Was able to make it through in one shot.
Man, one shot, one kill, huh? How was it going? Right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, I mean, good.
No, I was just going to ask, how was it going into BUDS, your mindset?
I think I was scared more than anything. I didn't know. I mean, this is pre-internet days. You know, this is 1997. I didn't know anybody who was a SEAL. I don't think I had probably encountered SEALs at that point because I had been in the Navy. Meaning I had probably seen them from a distance. So you can recognize the trident or the pin that you wear once you earn your NEC. So it was more of a gap in knowledge and what to expect, which, so, I was young. I was 19. I think if people don't have some level of self-doubt, they're probably not paying attention. So, you're
Yeah.
asking yourself those questions like, is this going to be as hard as I've heard? Are as many people going to quit as I have heard? Do I have the fortitude to make it through this? And then, class up day shows up and you get to find out.
Did you get any advice? Because I heard some people I talked to that like your brown shirt like is okay, like you've been through Hell Week or something like that. Did you ever get any advice from any of those guys?
You didn't interface with them much until you got to around the Hell Week time period. So when I went through, that was the 5th week of training.
Mm,
And the brown shirts, so there's before Hell Week, you wear a white shirt. After Hell Week, you wear a brown shirt. People get injured in training or they roll back for a variety of reasons. It could be academic, which is probably the least amount of rollbacks actually failing the tests. They're not that hard.
yeah.
Then you could have a physical setback, an injury, or then you could have a performance setback. So if you make it through Hell Week and you get rolled back, let's say you fail too many times swims, you will start the next class post Hell Week. And the instructor staff needs augmentation for administrative type stuff during Hell Week because it's a 24-hour evolution for 5 days. So brown shirt rollbacks augment the staff. That's when you first start really interfacing with them, like right leading up to the beginning of Hell Week, because they're helping getting stuff ready. And they'll give you some spit for sure. You're not rooting for people to not make it through. And honestly, the biggest piece of advice that I got was a guy was talking to a group of us, and he said, "You guys know that they have to feed you every 6 hours, right?" Which I didn't know.
Mm,
Looking back, it's logical, but 24 hours a day, caloric requirement is super high. So the guy's like, yeah, don't even worry about what day you're in. Don't worry about what time of day, sun's up, sundown. He's like, just make it to the next meal. If
nice.
you stack enough meals on top of each other, you start on a Sunday, like 6 to 8 p.m., end on a Friday, I don't know, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., depending on what's going on that day. You stack enough meals in a row, you're going to start on a Sunday and you'll be there on Friday, and that's all that matters. And it was very helpful. And it is a concept that I have utilized for the remainder of my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
What that's interesting. So just kind of like don't look at the full mountain, just go as you kind of go as you go. Do a little bit
Well,
and go.
look at the full mountain, right? You want to
Yeah.
determine what mountain it is you want to climb. But then once you're on the trail, does it really matter how far you are from the top? More
Yeah.
important is to focus on the next step that you need to take. Lift your head up a little bit to make sure you're still on the right path, that you haven't taken a left where you should have taken a right. But it's just another way of saying chunk your goals or bite things off in digestible pieces. That's all it
That's
is. It's taking a
awesome.
bigger goal into a smaller one. You can focus on the micro and still achieve your macro goal. And people think this is going to make achieving the goals easier. It doesn't make it easier. It makes it more digestible. Things that are uncomfortable are going to still be uncomfortable. Things that are challenging are still going to be challenging. But it's just easier when you're uncomfortable to say, I'm going to do this for the next 20 minutes versus the next 20 hours. You can just talk yourself into giving up so easily.
Man, that's some great advice. Absolutely. So after Buds, where did you end up going?
SEAL
After
Team
you
5.
graduated? Oh, SEAL Team 5. Okay.
Yep.
How was
And
that
for people
experience?
listening, it was good. For people listening, odds are on the West Coast, evens are on the East Coast.
Mm,
All the training now is identical. So it's really just where you pick up your mail. And a lot of people pick it based off of where they grew up or and honestly, it's kind of the weather, right? So you have San Diego or Virginia Beach. As
mm.
somebody who served in both of those areas, San Diego is exponentially better for almost every reason. I'm not a fan of humidity and stuff like that. So the Virginia Beach mornings in the middle of the summer where your windows are sweating at 5 a.m., like why? Why are we living here? It was great. It was everything I thought it was going to be. It was peacetime. I had the chance to do 2 peacetime full workups and deployments at Team 5. Got to see what the SEAL community was like in a non-wartime environment. And I was just serving with people that I thought were my heroes. I had a goal from a really young age, and I just was where I wanted to be, doing what I wanted to do.
So I got a question. So you, during the pipeline, you went to airborne school
After Buds, they
after
sent our
Buds.
entire class to Fort Benning. Yeah.
Man, how was that like intermingling with the Army guys?
It was a mistake for them to send our entire class. We were probably a leadership challenge
But
for the instructor staff. In third phase, if you get dropped down to do push-ups, it's 50 at a shot, right? And it
yeah.
basic airborne, I think it's like 5 or 10.
Hmm.
So I'm like, oh, you're going to punish us with one fit? Like, I mean, like, what were they thinking sending close to 30 guys to Fort Benning at this? Like, not a good strategy.
Yeah, man. I just remember um I went in July and it was extremely hot and humid. And July 4th was on a Wednesday. And you know, that first week you're just falling all week and your body's just like, come on, man. So I was happy to have that Wednesday off just to sleep most of the day to recover from falling all day.
Yeah. Yeah. We were there in late August, so definitely different
Yeah.
temperature.
So, and it's crazy. The Army can take something you can learn in 3 days and stretch it out to 2.5, 3 weeks, huh? Give it to
Yeah.
the
I've
Army.
asked all my buddies who had to go, if you had to, how quickly could you teach somebody how to static line jump? And I think the answer is 12 hours. I mean, I'm not going to say you're going to be great at it, but I really feel like you could cover the wave tops and get people out of an aircraft onto the ground. I really
Well,
do.
I mean, it's just a method of insertion. So, I mean, you just jump out, land, and go do your objective.
Yeah.
After, so you go into your first deployment. When was that?
So that would have been at the tail end of 98. And it was just it was to, I was going to say Guam. That was my second one. It was to Japan. I mean, it was pre 9/11.
Wow.
We would do a
Okay.
workup and then we would forward stage. So the traditional military model where they would cycle people forward. You know, you'd do a full workup and cycle people forward. You'd be overseas for 6 months and you're like just, I guess, sitting there waiting for something to happen, which never did.
Yeah.
But Japan, and you do a lot of training with partner forces. So we went to Australia, we went to Thailand, the Philippines, and just working with other partner forces. Second deployment was to Guam, same
Wow.
thing. Yeah, trained with exactly the same people. It was Australia again, Thailand, Philippines, 6 months, and came back, and then went out to the East Coast shortly after that.
Now, well, I wouldn't say, would you say those were peacetime? Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we weren't,
for sure.
yeah, we
I
weren't,
mean, they're pre 9/11.
yeah. What
I
about
mean,
your,
you're training as if like if something comes up, you're going to be the people that are asked to do it. But it just there was nothing coming up, you know.
I got you. Where were you when 9/11 happened? I had just got to Fort Bragg and that happened. I'm just like, oh man.
I was in an apartment with my now ex-wife. I had just woken up and had time to turn the TV on. Probably less than 30 seconds before the second plane went in live.
Mm.
So I was in San Diego. I was still attached to Team 5 at the time.
Did you get a call and said, hey, you need to come in now? We got some stuff to do.
No,
No.
no. I mean, I think everybody thought that was going to be the case, and people probably want to believe that everybody's pager went off, even though we didn't have pagers, because it's just a conventional SEAL team. You know, it's not like you were a JSOC command on an 0400 package. No, after that happened, I went out to the East Coast, went through the additional selection process for the command out there, and then didn't deploy until the end of 2002. And that was for a security detail, a very brief stint to augment a squadron overseas so they could rotate people back on a security detail. And then 2003, actually Iraq first before going back to Afghanistan on a kinetic deployment in 2003.
Man, those 2003 days were like the Wild West, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it was for us. 07, 8, and 9 were probably the most kinetic time periods. There
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of, and it's people will wonder whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing to get involved in that much combat. And I don't claim to have that much combat experience by any stretch. But earlier on, I think the people we ended up fighting were sitting back and watching a little bit more than they were directly
Absolutely.
engaging, figuring out how we work, planning a little bit. And then they really started ramping it up towards the tail end, somewhere I would say between, 6, 7, 8 was probably the kinetic peak.
That's exactly what they did to us. They learned our TTPs and then use it against us, man. And it was, man.
Smart. That's what we would do.
I agree. Did you have any? How were the workups? Were the workups a little different going into these deployments rather than peacetime?
So I was over at a JSOC command by this point, and we would deploy for 90, come back and train for 180, and then deploy for 90 again. So half of the year we were overseas. And then in that 180 of training, at least half of that was out of the area training as well, too. So it was full gas pedal to the floor.
How was your leadership? Did you learn anything? Did you have any bad leaders? You're like, okay, I'm never going to be like that.
Oh, yeah, always. I mean, even at the people think that if you get to a certain level in the military, that doesn't exist. But the reality is there's every team, even the most high performing team, has a top 10% and a bottom 10%. Now, the bottom 10% on an incredibly high performing team is going to crush most people, but still amongst their peers, they're the bottom performer. Even at the highest levels, there were people that I would say were very poor examples of leadership. But I also think you can learn lessons from that as well. It's actually easier for me to learn lessons from bad leadership because the train wreck just sticks itself out. Yeah. You just see it and you're like, wow, that is horrible. Really good leaders, I have found to be a little bit harder to pin down as like, how are they doing this? Is it the way they talk? Is it the way that they move? Is it the way they conduct themselves? Is it the way that they think? Is it the way that they can communicate an idea? Is it their emotional control? Like, you know what I mean? Like all of those things. And it's way more subtle in the way that it influences people. Bad leaders, you're just like, I don't want to be anywhere near this person.
Well, I think what makes a good leader, and I think you're big on this, is accountability.
Yeah, you have to have that for sure.
Taking extreme accountability and not making any excuses. And I think when a leader does that, especially their subordinates see that, they're saying, okay, this is how I want to be and this is how I should conduct myself. So
yeah, but that's a good principle for life, though. I mean, people don't need to, don't sit there and lie to yourself and say you shouldn't be like that because you're not in a leadership position. Leadership to me is like a professional license. You have to practice. There's a reason we teach people how to drive a vehicle before you go get your driver's license. Nobody goes to the DMV having never driven a car and says, hey, I'm here to take my test. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to, but you're going to fail, and you're going to fail because you don't know how to drive. Leadership, I try to get people to think about leadership in the same way. Treat it as a professional license, maybe practice a little bit before you actually get into your first role of being a leader so you're prepared for it. Otherwise, you're going to be behind the power curve, which doesn't mean you're going to fail, but it's going to suck more, at least.
Oh, 100%. So you were at the highest level. What made you want to go into being a BUDS instructor? Was that kind of like picked? Did you choose that?
No, I did not want to do that job. It would have been the last job that I would have selected. I was injured on a target in 2005. And the reality is that place moves at a really high pace. And they didn't need somebody who wasn't able to move at that pace. And my wife at the time and I collectively made the decision that we needed to take a break, not from each other, but from the operational tempo. So I don't even remember if there was a second choice. One of the choices was a BUDS instructor, but that's where it came to be. If I had not gotten injured, I don't think I would have ever ended up there.
Okay. How was your experience that? Because I heard, because I love your podcast, man. It's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about one of your goals was to make somebody quit.
I mean, the goal of an instructor is not to make somebody quit per se. The goal of the instructor is to apply the curriculum. The curriculum's job is to separate the people who should be there from the people who shouldn't be. And in that training pipeline, it's raising your hand and saying, I quit, and ringing a bell 3 times and putting your helmet down next to the bell. Not everybody is created equal when it comes into their ability to apply the curriculum. And some people, I think, take it really seriously. Maybe some people don't take it seriously enough. Some people take it really personal and they try to define themselves by the number of people they can get to quit. I treated it like a job. I truly thought it was my job to apply the curriculum. But yeah, I mean, I tried to be as good at my job as possible. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Did you learn anything in that process, maybe about yourself or just through the whole BUDS? And so did you see anything, I don't know, that you can apply to life maybe? I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, the biggest thing I learned about myself is that I really enjoy being a teacher. I didn't think that that would necessarily be something I would be drawn to, but it was cool to be able to mold and manipulate the future of the community through just education. Again, it wasn't my job to create curriculum. It was my job to apply the curriculum. And I worked in the diving phase. So we were teaching open circuit diving, which means when you exhale, bubbles come out. And then beyond that, they would go to closed circuit, which is when you exhale, it's in a closed circuit. Then there's a chemical scrubber that takes the carbon dioxide out of it and injects pure oxygen. It's, the sneakier way to dive, if you will. So teaching the students that stuff was cool, but just interfacing with them and treating them like people and actually explaining to them the community that they were about to go into, which was a wartime SEAL teams, which was drastically and vastly different than the community that I went into. I thought that was essential for them to know what it was they were getting into.
That's all.
Yeah. And so I did my best to impart as much of that knowledge as possible. And then it was pretty cool because after being a BUDS instructor, I picked up through a commissioning program while I was there. That's where I hopped over from being enlisted to officer. I went over to Team 3 and ended up serving with a bunch of the people that I had put through training.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I've, just like you were just discussing, I kind of figured that out. I went through your traditional, we did the initial push to Iraq, 2003, then 2007 was in Afghanistan for 15 months, came back, 2009 was in there for 12. And then I came back and I got the opportunity to go. I wouldn't consider it a deployment, but the big army does. I went to Africa and trained the Djiboutian army in Djibouti. So I did that, and I would have to say, out of everything that I've done, that was probably the most gratifying, because we sit there and we taught somebody. I was a truck driver, but we went in there, we taught these guys how to drive. We taught them how to conduct convoy operations, and we taught them, we had some scouts and infantry guys there with us. We taught them basic riflemen. And just going to see them from not knowing anything to teaching them that and implementing that, it was very gratifying. And I think that was probably one of the best things that I've done in the military. So
yeah,
I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
So I know you like to skydive a lot. I saw the wingsuit videos and stuff you did. How'd you get into that?
Well, I don't know if you know this,
Halo.
but static line jumping sucks.
100%.
So, yeah, God. My first platoon, we had a guy, he was in charge. He loved doing air operations. And the training is all broken up into multi-week different segments. Like you'll dive for 3 weeks and then you'll go do air ops for 3 weeks. Well, he loved it because he was doing free fall stuff. So as you're walking onto the back of the C-130, he would sit down on the cargo nets on the right, and the static line dudes would sit down on the cargo nets on the left. And so we would go up to 1,000 feet and, stand up, hook up, shuffle to the door, and then, try to pick up our bones on the drop zone as after landing. And you hear these guys hooting and hollering under canopy like, oh, that's amazing. Did you see all that cool stuff? I'm like, I'm on the wrong side of the aircraft. So, I mean, that's where it came from. Like, this side that I'm on with the static line is not awesome. I don't know how many of these I have left before my body shatters. The guys on the right are doing these tiptoe landings. Like, why are they high-fiving? Why are they smiling after jumping out of an airplane? Because that's not my experience. So I actually the first free fall jumps I did were just at a civilian drop zone. I went down in San Diego.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and found a civilian drop zone. And I just really enjoyed it. So I would go skydive in my off time. And then I think when I had around 250 jumps, a message came out saying they were doing a challenge course for the military free fall curriculum. So if you had I forget the number of jumps you needed at the time, but if you had civilian jumps, you could go out to Yuma, because people may not know this. The Army is the proponent for military free fall. The JFK, Special Warfare Center out in Bragg, actually. So even though now the Navy runs its own free fall course, it still falls underneath that pipeline. They still report back all the way to the Army pipelines. Went out to Yuma, which is where the military free fall jumping portion occurred. There was a wind tunnel section out at Bragg that we did not do for the challenge course. And I think I was out there for maybe 5 days, as opposed to the 4 weeks that most students are out there. There's these test wickets that you would have to go through. Like if you were there as a student, you would do X amount of jumps and then a test jump, and then X amount of jumps and a test jump. Maybe one would be just no equipment whatsoever, just stable body flight, then put a rucksack on, then nighttime, all of this stuff. So basically we went up there and we just did the test wickets and then went back with a free fall certification.
Awesome.
That's Yeah, that's how I got my military free fall qualification. And then when I was out on the East Coast, in the time where I could pick the training that I wanted to do, I obviously enjoyed skydiving. So the boss I had at the time let me kind of just stack some courses on top of each other. So I did static line jump master, free fall jump master, AFF instructor, tandem master, all back to back to back to back. So I went basically through all the military air courses and ended up leaving, I think, with just about every, if not every, air free fall air qualification of military officers.
What'd you think about jump master school, man? That's a
cool.
big deal in the Army.
Yeah, well, static line, it matters a little bit more. You have a lot less, and the canopies are so less maneuverable. Like if you put somebody out on a long spot over trees, you might have really ruined somebody's day.
Yes.
Free fall, yeah, and like free fall, you don't want to intentionally spot bad, but you can deploy your parachute a little bit higher, and they actually have forward drive and they're controllable. You can correct for that type of stuff. So you still want to be very, very precise. But static line, especially releasing jumpers at those lower altitudes, you got to be way more precise.
What I don't understand though is when you go to jump master school, you JMPI 3 different people and you're timed. Well, in real life, you don't rush through a JMPI.
Yeah, that's just the stress though.
Yeah.
The easiest way to introduce stress is a stopwatch. They do the same thing for military free fall.
Oh,
I don't know why you would ever do free fall JMPIs under an arbitrary timeline. It would make no sense. But they do that because they're trying to stress you out. I mean, that's literally all it is. It's the same thing as going out to a pistol or a rifle range. If you just let people shoot at their leisure, they're fine. And then you pull out a stopwatch or a shot timer, you're like, okay, we're doing this for time. People start falling apart.
You know what? I like the way you broke that down. Okay, I like that. Yeah, so when I was stationed in Europe and I went jumping, I went jumping with the SF dudes. We did a C-130 tailgate. It was a static line. We jumped 1,500 feet in. We jumped the MC-1-1 Delta, and it's semi-maneuverable. It's got toggles, and you can maneuver a little bit. I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. And I was talking with the guy who was Halo, and I was like, so what's the difference? He's like, it's night and day. So I went, and I said, And then I left Germany and I went to Italy and I met this old Halo instructor. He's a Mexican dude, really cool. And he taught me how to jump. And I did my first free fall there in Italy and I fell in love. But I only got 25 jumps. It's an expensive hobby and I didn't do it after I left.
Yeah,
so
man. But then then the canopies are night and day. I mean, the maneuverability.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you get out a little bit long, like you'll be okay. Deploy a little bit higher and fly your canopy home. If you get out long in a static line, I mean, just spit, and wherever it lands, that's where you're going too.
That's where you're going, brother. Absolutely. Yeah. So where'd you where'd you end up going after being a BUDS instructor?
Went back over to Team 3, did one more deployment to Afghanistan in 2010. And came back from that and was the operations officer at a training detachment as they processed my medical retirement.
Okay. Now, was it hard transitioning from enlisted to officer at your level?
No, I actually think it was really beneficial. I mean, I understood the system. If you want to equate it to like a butcher shop, I understood how the sausage was made, as opposed to just coming in there and yelling at people like, why aren't you doing your job better? I understood why things happen the way they happen, where the friction points were. The tactical understanding helped when it came to making leadership decisions. I found it to be nothing but beneficial.
Okay. So how was your transition out of the military? I know mine sucked.
I mean, I don't know anybody who's like jumping up and down saying they had a great one. So I went through the PEB, MEB process. So for military people listening, they might be familiar, but that's the Medical Evaluation Board, Physical Evaluation Board process. It's a lot of doctor's appointments, and you actually do your VA, what do they call them? Pension, PNC?
Peblos?
Whatever it is you normally do after you get out of the military with the VA, you do that while you're still in. So you get a concurrent VA rating and a military rating. So you do that, but you submit a package, and then I don't know where this package goes. I submitted mine at the hospital up in Balboa to a guy who had, I'm not joking, a stack of packages 3 feet high on his desk.
Holy
so they go somewhere. I'm not sure. Point in all this is you're going to wait 6 to 9 months for a result. So I got the result, I call it 6 months versus 9. And I think they gave me 90 days. They're like, listen, this is the determination of the board. 90 days, air wins, following C's, so then you got to do a bunch of stuff, right? You got to turn in your gear and all this stuff. You got to do all the exit things that you need to do in the military. I went to the TAPS program. What I'll say is I attended none of the courses, but had all of the signatures. People can figure that out on their own.
Yes,
Yeah, but I had started after I got hurt. I had started working for a strength and conditioning company called CrossFit on the weekends. So
nice.
so I knew what I was going to do after the military, at least as my starting point. So it wasn't as if one day when I drove on to NAS North Island and got my DD 214, that when I left the base that day, I had to figure out what am I going to do with my life? Because I was already working essentially a full-time job at that point, which was really nice. Now, that still doesn't help you with, and I'm sure you can attest to this, you feel like you're leaving your team, right?
Yeah.
Which I get, you know what I mean? And I don't care what job you have next. That's going to come for you at some point in time. You are going to be proud of the job you used to have. It literally had a uniform. There's a certain way that people look at you, whether it is deserved or not, the amount of respect that they give you, whether it is deserved or not. And sometimes the jobs you have are really important, and that's gone. And it's going to be gone for the rest of your life. And everybody that you used to work with moves on just fine without you. And that's a tough one because everybody wants to think they're the most important person on the team. And guess what? You're all replaceable, every single one of you. So remember that. So that's going to come for you at some point in time. And I would say just deal with that head on. Yeah. For me, it did help having the occupation thing figured out. And this is the advice that I give people. At least a year before you get out, at least start thinking about what you want to do next. I have so many people that I know that waited till 6 months before they got out, 3 months before they got out, didn't think about it at all. That's going to really suck. In addition to that transition, why do that to yourself? That's completely optional. Don't do that. And also, there's a lot of great vocational programs that the military offers, but they're not going to push them on you. You need to put your time in and research them on your own.
Absolutely.
The military is great at onboarding people. They are not good at exiting people or offboarding. And I actually don't think it should be the military's role. I've come to the conclusion that I think that should be where NGOs sit, like these non-government organizations. Mm-hmm. I think they should be totally responsible for the transition out of the military because the military is not about your exit. It's about your entrance and then what you can do for the military while you're in. But there's enough nonprofit money out there where they could handle that step, and I think it would be hugely beneficial. I mean, I don't know your experience with TAPS, which is the military's swing at preparing you for the outside world. It doesn't. It didn't, So occupationally is fine. Ego's not the right word, but I guess perception of self, a little tougher,
Yeah. When did you get into jiu-jitsu?
7 years ago. I was just having this conversation with my wife. So I lived in San Diego until 2017. Moved up here. I found jiu-jitsu when I was 40 after we moved up here into Montana. So I had no exposure to it or experience with it while I was in the military.
Really? Did you fall in love with it?
It's just fun, man.
Yeah.
I like things that you can't master. You can get really good at jiu-jitsu, but I don't think you're ever going to have all the answers to all the problems. And I really like stuff like that because I think the key to staying young is constantly challenging yourself. And what better way to do so than with something that's just not possible that you master it.
And it gives you a form of discipline too. I think the discipline was pretty good too. And what?
Maybe. It depends on the person. There's some really lazy people who do jiu-jitsu.
And you know what? I watched the podcast with Joe and Jocko when they were talking about when this whole police brutality thing was pretty big. And both of them were talking about something that really intrigued me that said officers should at least be a purple belt.
I think they said blue belt, but I get the point.
Yeah, it's one of them.
Yeah. I would say, blue belt is, I think, definitely achievable. Purple belt's going to be a little bit deeper in, right? You're probably going to be 4 years in for purple belt. But dude, at a blue belt level, how long have you been training for?
So I did combatives in the Army. I did combatives level 1 and level 2, which is, a little bit, but I don't really do it on a regular, but I do love rolling around.
Okay. So at a blue belt level, if you encounter somebody who has never trained, you are going to maul them.
Absolutely.
You just have an understanding of leverage, weight distribution, sweeps, submissions, and police officers, I guess, other than doctors, I don't know of any other job that requires you to actually touch people every day on your job. My cop buddies do not go through a day where they are not touching somebody. And most of the time, that's helping somebody, right? Like a medical issue, whatever it is. Like boxes of gloves in their car and Narcan these days. But sometimes people get a little bit spicy. And I mean,
Yeah.
you just need to go onto YouTube and watch 4 cops getting their ass whipped by a 130-pound meth head. And then one dude will roll in who actually trains and dump that person on their head,
Yep.
depending on what they've done to the other officers. Or even the better ones are finding somebody who is totally, that the person that the cops are trying to subdue is losing their mind, and a cop comes in that trains and is able to put them on the ground, get them in cuffs, and not hurt them at all because they understand the mechanics. Like that is
Yeah.
the beauty of it. I don't think there ever be a place where you could demand that of officers or force it. But if I was in their shoes, I don't care what it costs. I don't care if I had to cut Starbucks out of my diet for 2 years to get my blue belt, because really, if you Starbucks a day is about the cost of going to a jiu-jitsu gym. I mean, dude, you touch people for a living. Not all of them want to do what you want to say. Get home to your family. And also, I look at this from the other side. I have 3 kids, a 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 17-year-old, boy, girl. They're dipshits sometimes. And they do dumb things like you and I did when I was young. If they were out hammered, making a bad decision, what cop do I want showing up? Do I want the cop showing up that's going to basically verbally command somebody to do something, then be out of skills and is going to go to their taser? And if that doesn't work, they're going to go to their gun? Or do I want a dude who's a savage on the mat who will sit there and just like verbally let that stuff bounce off of them before they know it? Arm drag my son. He's in a set of handcuffs in a cop car, no injuries whatsoever, and he gets to deal with the shame and embarrassment of the drunk tank. Like that, the officer that I want to have arrive in that situation is the most capable and prepared officer possible. It's just one of their core competencies of their job, or core requirements, I should say.
Yeah, because most of the time, officers, they do a traffic stop, they don't encounter any resistance.
No,
When
like 99% of the time they don't. But those don't make YouTube.
No, they don't. But then when that 1% happens, their adrenaline starts going, and sometimes they make irrational decisions.
Unless you're trying to choke your friends out every day.
Exactly.
It's funny how comfortable you can get in an environment where most people would completely emotionally lose themselves. If you are used to pushing yourself into that place, and I'm not saying it totally replicates a real world exchange, because you will have an elevate. You're still going to have that sense of, hey, we're not in our pajamas anymore on mats. Like now we're on concrete. But I'm here to tell you that your top line revving out is going to be way lower than somebody who has never trained at all. Like, yeah,
Absolutely.
you might be a little bit more escalated, but trust me, you are not going to be as escalated as the person who has no tools and no answers.
Yeah, man. So how did you get into being a barista owner?
A coffee shop owner? Trust me, I'm not a barista. Nobody wants me to make them coffee. I like to own a coffee shop. I don't work at a coffee shop. I met Evan Hafer, the founder of Black Rifle Coffee, many years ago. Yeah, he's become one of my closest friends. And, their business was just growing, and they were going through phases of, we're going to do coffee shops, then we're not going to. We're going to do coffee shops, and then we weren't going to. And I had moved up here to Montana, and it was just kind of a random alignment of situations where I caught him at a time where he wanted to do more, and I had the ability to do so. So kind of locked it up. It's my first venture into anything like brick and mortar. It's as far as like a brick and mortar business owner goes. The only time I've ever done anything like that. We got like 40 employees, most of which are part-time though, and most of which are very young, by the way, because not a lot of people want to work at a coffee shop for most of their life. And I don't think you should, right? Like not all, it's another conversation I have to have with my kids. Like your first job is not the one you buy a house with. I know your generation is complaining about not being able to afford a Corvette and a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but dude, you work at McDonald's. Like that's not your forever job,
Did you, so right after you transitioned out and you started doing, were you working at a CrossFit gym?
I owned one for a bit, but I was working for the, yeah, but it was kind of secondary to what I was doing. I was actually working for the company themselves, the actual parent company.
And then when did you figure out, hey man, you know what? Because you're a very intelligent individual. And I think having a podcast is right up your alley. When did you decide you want to do that?
It wasn't my idea. It was a suggestion from Joe Rogan, who has spawned thousands of podcasts with his recommendations to people. So that would have been in 2016 or 17.
Okay. How did you come up with the concept? Like, cause Cleared Hot,
I did.
that's awesome. I like that name.
That was somebody else's suggestion. I was working with 511 Tactical at the time. They actually bought my first set of equipment. It was only audio. It was like a Zoom HD6 with 2 microphones and a SIM card. No audio. I didn't have audio or no video. I didn't have video for years. A buddy of mine, it was his suggestion, actually.
Okay. Getting out, being an entrepreneur, doing a podcast and stuff, do you apply any principles used in the military to outside life?
I mean, I don't know if there are any principles that are in the military that don't apply to outside life.
Okay.
It's a different utilization. I mean, the execution of your job might look a little bit different, but I mean, if you look at like the basics of what most people would say, the foundation of tactical proficiency in the SEAL teams would be your ability to shoot, move, and communicate.
Yeah.
No, I don't need my baristas to be able to shoot, right? Or move, but I need them to be able to communicate. And so just change some of the terms, like shoot. How about this? I don't need you to shoot. I need you to be able to make a really good cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Move. I need you to be able to go around obstacles, right? So I need you to be able to do your job and real world problem solve and also communicate with not only me up the chain of command or the managerial staff, but to also your other staff members. I mean, military life, the Navy's got its own set of core values, and all the branches, as you know, have their own core values and ethos, but all the, honor, courage, commitment, integrity, all these things. I mean, that's not military specific. I think that's just in general a good way to live your life.
Absolutely, man. What do you think it takes what principles have you applied to your podcast that's made it so successful? And when I say principles, maybe just your own version of leadership, your own version of outlook on being successful.
I don't look at it as a leadership podcast at all. I just try to be myself. I mean, my guiding principle is I try to be myself. I'm not afraid of saying I don't know, because there's way more I don't know about than I do.
Absolutely.
I try to be honest with what I do know and what I don't, with what I have experienced, with what I haven't. I'm fascinated by other people's experiences, so I just try to ask questions and then listen to the answer. To me, the key to podcasting is about listening.
Yeah, man, I agree. I'm trying to, but we've had our podcast for maybe a year and a half now, a little over a year and a half. I'm trying to just perfect everything. I want to, like, doing the virtual thing is cool, but I really want to get into doing in person.
Yep.
It
changes it. You can read people better. There's a better connection when you're face to face. COVID showed us you can do most things remotely, but it just doesn't mean it's the same,
Yeah. Yeah, man. What's next for you? What you got going on now?
Hell if I know. I kind of got tricked into writing a book, so that comes out in April.
What's it called?
Drown Proof.
Drown Proof.
Yeah, I actually do the audio book in 2 weeks. They're letting me do it here in the studio, which is nice. I don't have to travel for that.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff that'll have to come for that. I mean, like I said, I got to do the audio book. That's 4 days right there. I'm getting a studio redesign. So the curtain walls behind me there's 3 walls in the studio that are getting redone by a really high-end set production company out of LA. They've already built it there. They're going to disassemble it and bring it up here.
Wow.
Yeah. And the book thing, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's going to do well. So I guess at this point, it's trying to do everything necessary up to the point of getting that launched, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Mm-hmm. I'm really curious because you got 3 kids. I got 5. How do you, with travel, being an entrepreneur, podcast, and everything? How do you balance everything, man?
Well, my kids are older. 2 of my kids don't live with me. My middle son is off in college getting a mechanical engineering degree in Bozeman. My oldest son has lived with me at times. He is 22. He's living locally, but with my ex right now, getting ready to find his own place here in April. So, 2 of those people have a lot of wind underneath their wings.
Okay.
My daughter is 17. She's in the middle of a welding vocational program here. She wants to be a welder. the biggest thing for me is I bring them with me as much as I can. I involve them in everything that I'm doing. Like 2 out of the 3 train jiu-jitsu. We just got back from Costa
Nice.
Rica. Yeah, we got back from Costa Rica. My wife is a very high level jiu-jitsu practitioner and coach. So obviously we have a bunch of friends that train jiu-jitsu, and I think I've taken the kids there now 4 times. We go there for a week and train. The boys train. My daughter hangs out, catches some sun, but we spend I involve them in as much of what it is that I'm doing as possible. I want them to at least know who I am and why I do the things that I do. They may not appreciate it now, but my hope is they will at some point.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think, having my wife's she loves to monopolize my time. So like you said, I love
That's a
to
good thing.
like yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm very blessed, She goes everywhere I go when we go on trips cuz we do a lot of stuff. Like for instance, we're about to go to Long Beach. We're involved with the CT Fletcher. He's doing this Iron Wars X thing, and we're going to be involved with him doing something like that. And then I'm going to try to go to the LA Fit Expo. We got a new segment we're doing, Life After Sports, because it kind of ties in a little bit with the military, with the training, the mindset, and trying to find yourself after, you take uniform off or you take your pads off or whatever. So we're trying to dive in a little bit with that. So yeah, she goes everywhere we go, and I love having her with us. So definitely trying to find that work balance is crucial for us.
It's not easy.
No, it's definitely not, man. And but she's happier. She's like, "Where are we going next?" I'm like, okay, we're
Yeah,
going here.
it's a good thing.
How was your conversation with Dan Crenshaw?
It was good. I can only ask the questions that I can ask. I can't compel
Yeah.
anybody to provide information. It doesn't. We live in a world where it almost doesn't even matter. Dan literally went through his financial records of what he has invested, which is
Mm-hmm.
$38,000. And then people will say, yeah, but what about his wife? What about his family? And the answer to that is, I don't know. And I can't get his wife to give me their financials. So there's no way for me to get any question or answer to a point where people are going to believe it if they don't want to. So
Yeah, man.
I can ask the questions that I want answered, and people can either accept the answer or they cannot, but I can't control that.
Do you think? Do you think this whole feud has gotten a lot of control?
I don't even know if I would call it a feud. I don't know if it's out of control. I wish they just would have handled it directly.
Thank you. Yeah, I look at it and it takes me back to high school. I'm like, man, it's back
Yeah.
and forth.
For me, though, that's the direct approach is the way that I prefer. And I can only
Yeah,
control
man.
me. Other people may not prefer that. Live your life how you want, make the choices you want, conduct yourself the way you want to. If it were up to me, I would have, if I could have been the person controlling it, I would have had them handle it directly. But I'm not, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm really curious because you have a lot of really cool guests on your show. How do you pick your guests? Do you have a
Uh,
process?
if it sounds interesting, it's literally
Really?
what it is. Yeah. If the
Okay.
guest or topic sounds interesting.
Do you have a process where you like, okay, I definitely want to ask these questions, or you just kind of go with the flow?
I only know the first question I'm going to ask them.
Really? And you kind of let the conversation evolve as it goes.
Key to podcasting is listening.
I like that, man. I've
I
learned a
mean,
lot
if
from
it's
you.
if it's a notable person or they are involved in something that is kind of like in the current lexicon, I know I definitely want to talk about it, but I don't necessarily worry about how we're going to get into that conversation.
Yeah. Because we started this podcast, and what we wanted to do is we started with people we knew. Okay, our
Mhm.
old people in our old units that we really
Yeah,
knew.
totally.
And we're like, okay, we want to give voices to, we call myself, like people like you, veterans, everyday heroes. We're where the rubber meets the road to make America go how it goes. So we wanted to give everybody a voice to talk about what they talk about because people might have different paths, and my path may help you. The avenues I've taken and the struggles that I've gone through, it may help you hearing my story. And you're like, man, you know what? I went through the same thing, and that makes sense. So, that's the whole reason why we started ours, and it's just evolved into, now I got Andy Stumpf on the show, and I'm blessed, man, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I think everybody starts with the people that they know. I mean, the first people I talked to are people in the CrossFit world for sure, and friends of mine. And you have to give it time. A lot of people ask me about starting a podcast, and it sucks because they almost always lead with, "Hey, those ads you do, how do you get your podcast big enough to do ads?" I'm like, man, you are asking the wrong questions. I don't think I
Mhm.
monetized the show for maybe like 40 years.
Yeah, the
And I
grind.
take the money that I make from it into buying more stuff for the show, like the studio redesign, not cheap. I have a new
Mhm.
lighting panel overhead and some other stuff that'll stay with the new redesign. Or it's like, okay, I need another camera. I need a better, you know what I mean? It's just, it goes back into the show. Um, yeah, I wish I had Joe Rogan money because I think he makes enough to not put all of it back into the show.
Oh
Obviously, I'm
yeah.
joking. Yeah, Joe's fantastic, but he's also just like incredibly generous as a person.
Hmm.
But, there's Joe Rogan money and then there's everybody else money.
Oh yeah.
People need to take it and have a realistic expectation of what it's going to look like and how long it's going to take. Let the show change. What I don't want to see people do is get stuck into something that they like when they begin with, and then it becomes a horrible job that they end up hating. So I try not to professionalize the things that I really enjoy. Like I'll never be a jiu-jitsu coach. I don't want to coach jiu-jitsu. I want to do it for the enjoyment, not because I feel like I have to be there. This doesn't feel like a job to me. Podcasting doesn't feel like a job to me. I've been exposed and
Yeah.
introduced to such fascinating people. And my job is to sit down and talk to somebody who is a world renowned expert and fill in the blank. Okay, I would probably pay you to do that. Like, okay, I accept this job. So I'm lucky in that respect. But also, I've been at this for almost 10 years.
Yeah, man. You're subject matter expert now, Andy.
I don't know about that. No. I'm a subject matter expert at making mistakes.
Well, I think that's how we learn, man. I know I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, and it's helped me forge forward. And then, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So, where do you see yourself 5 years from now for your podcast? You got any big plans, or you just kind of going as we go?
I go as we go. The studio redesign will be a very large jump in production quality.
Hmm.
In addition, with the lights, I went from 2 cameras to 5 and
Wow.
increased lighting setup. Michael, my producer's desk, we added some stuff to his desk. Just little stuff along the way that you don't think about, all with the goal of like, let's take this thing for a spin and see what it can do. Like let's get the production value matters. There is
Absolutely.
so much content that is out there. I don't want to do like cinematic. I think that's too much, but I also
Mhm.
want to take it seriously. So for me, it's micro stuff. I don't have like some crazy 5-year macro goal. I enjoy the things I'm doing now, but I would like to do them better.
What kind of cameras are you using?
Sony FX30.
Oh, the FX, that's real nice, man. That's awesome. One day I aspire to do things like that. I
I
think.
started with a Sony Handycam. I started with a single Sony Handycam, and then it became 2. And then eventually I bought the Shure SM7B microphones, which are like the Rogan microphones, right?
Hmm.
And then it was a low end Black Magic. I mean, we're like 6 or 7 iterations into this. It started in my house. It
Hmm.
started audio only. It started in a 1-room office suite, actually in the same building we're in right now. But now I have a 3-room office suite. I actually have like an area where I can make coffee. There's a couch for like a green room area. My wife has an office. But this isn't, quarter 1. We're in a 1 room office suite. Quarter 2, this is like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. These jumps, they take time.
Man. Well, Andy, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure sitting down and talking with you. I can't wait to see the book Drown Proof come out. Um, is there anything you want to leave with the guests before you get off of here?
Probably the most important thing, I started doing Friday episodes years ago because for whatever reason, my inbox is flooded with questions. And
Okay.
I do my best to answer people's questions, but I realized it'd probably be better just to answer them on a show. So it also allowed me to increase the number of episodes that I put out per week. So the number of people that have reached out and essentially said, I feel like I'm alone and I feel like I'm the only person dealing with this problem is unbelievable. It's not every question, but it might be a third, if not a half of the questions. And I'm sure if we're all human, we have our ups and downs. I've had my low moments. I've had moments where I felt like I was alone. I've had moments where I felt like nobody else was dealing with what I was dealing with. And as soon as you reach out and talk to somebody, you realize that just about everybody is dealing with exactly what it is that you are dealing with. And that feeling of being alone can talk you into a place, especially for veterans, where you start making really bad decisions, especially if you pair it with drugs and alcohol. And I don't like to see that. I mean, I think the most important thing to leave people with is just hopefully an understanding or realization that regardless of what you're going through, you're not the only one going through it. And you don't actually have to suffer alone. The more you reach out for help, the more people are going to be there with open arms to help you. I've never had somebody say no to me when I've reached out for help. Not a single time. Even if it's like, hey, I need help changing a tire, they're like, on the way. Like not a single time has somebody said no. You're not alone. You're not dealing with something that somebody else hasn't dealt with before. So don't make any rash, permanent decisions.
I think a lot of times military guys, you get a lot of these alpha males or think they're alpha males and they're afraid to reach out for help for some odd reason. I don't know why.
Because I think it's a sign of weakness.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. You hit it on the head. And we try to advocate. Like me, when I got out, man, I had to sit on somebody's couch. I had to talk. And when I did that, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
After talking, man. So again, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing, stuff you got going on, sharing your story, man. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. Till the next time, stay swaggy, stay strong, y'all. Peace.